Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you, Maggie and Kelsey, for inviting us to this Rockerbox summer camp. Today's session is marketing with full funnel strategy and understanding the halo effect of TV. So we've got some really exciting stuff. I'll give you a brief intro of Lab 415 and ourselves, and then we'll go into the presentation. So myself, Marc Viale, I'm a industry veteran, been in marketing on the client side for over 30 years. More recently with the Real, where I was their founding marketing leader, and from a very small startup in a garage all the way to NASDAQ IPO, and I stayed a year or two after. And since then, I've been advising clients, startups, on their growth challenges. And, there's a recurring theme, and so I wanted to start taking our playbook from the Real and also Susan, who I'm going to introduce in a second, and just sort of impart that on other companies who really get stuck, before they get to that 100 million layer. Susan, who we're so lucky to have, she's my partner. She's got over 35 years of experience, and I'll let her give a brief intro.
So my experience is was originally in brand planning, and then I grew into falling in love with direct response, more on the offline side. And then over time, I eventually I worked for Kara, as you know, is a very large media holding company across it's now Dentsu, Kara, and it's around the world. And I eventually became executive vice president of integrated media. And then I left there and went to Ogilvy in New York, on the digital side, which was a really great experience for me. So I've had some sort of background in both branding, pure branding, direct response marketing, and then really got involved in digital. So that's a nice trifecta when you're trying to put together plans. And I've been sort of working with Marc on and off since 2017 when I met him at the Real. And I'm just happy to be with him. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So lots of experience. Here's some of the brands. You can see it's very cross category. Where Susan and I, again, we met at the Real, where she introduced TV to the Real, and we never looked back after being really focused in digital. And so some of these brands we've worked individually on, and then also together. And you can see it's cross category. So we're not really niche oriented. We solve marketing challenges, so, you can see the gamut here from the farmer's dog to Second Life, which is like the metaverse, and lots of retailers. So lots of great stuff here. Let me go to the next slide. And so Lab 415's mission is to become your strategic partner in all things performance. And we sit on both sides of the fence, acquisition and retention, because, if you're bringing in great customers at a low CAC and they have low LTV, that makes no sense. So we really focus on the LTV of these customers as well, helping customers understand, journey building and that kind of thing, to make sure, the customers we bring to your door are coming back often. Here's the full funnel, and you're probably familiar with this. And, when you do have a full funnel, you do need a tool like a Rockerbox, so you can see all your different sources and that kind of thing. We spend a lot of time with clients who are stuck in that bottom of funnel. And, it's your bread and butter. It's your, search and shopping. And lots of clients love this area, right? Because it converts really high. People are searching for your product or something relevant to it, and they come into your PDP and they convert. And, it's really, this is what a lot of folks build their cohorts on. The con on the Googles, the search and shopping is, it tends to be people are looking around, and so they're shopping, and so you get a lot of one-hit wonders here. They come in, purchase from you from a search, and you never see them again. And that that lends itself to a low LTV typically. And I see a lot of customers, they get stuck around here at about 10,000 a month, right? And they're like, what do we do? And then there's also the middle funnel, which is paid social, which is great for keeping your prospects engaged with remarketing, and also customers that haven't gone back and you don't have an email for them. What we've seen with them, and since the iOS 14 release, the privacy issues, it became really expensive acquisition. And I saw this across industries, even beauty, which is often really good with paid social. CACs went way up here, Where we like to play, where our niche is the top of funnel, which is, your TV, your podcasts, your radio, and I would even put press and things like that up here. And the reason why it's, we like to play here, it's because it's really underdeveloped on most clients. But it's a critical piece, because, with search, the bottom of funnel, we really have a small market, right? You're just getting people that are searching for your product. With the top of funnel, you really expand your market, because you're basically, you do that 30-second spot and you really get your value prop in there, and hopefully that will have some affinities with some of the audiences that you're showing your commercial to, and they'll be like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I need. This is the problem I've been trying to solve. And they come into your site, they purchase, and they become enthusiastic about your brand. They feel like they're an advocate, right? And so they're really loyal. They start to recruit their friends and family, of course. And that lends itself to a higher LTV. And then, contrary to popular belief, this can be your least expensive traffic. It brings in a lot of traffic at a low CPM. We can talk a little bit more about that. The con, well, it's a con unless you're not ready for it. It has a longer conversion cycle than your bottom of funnel, right? And so when we talk to clients, we always, in our prep, we talk about, hey, do you have nurturing programs in place? Are you grabbing that email or SMS when they come to your site? Because they may not be ready to purchase right when they're watching that TV spot. And so we really focus on this, to make it successful, where you're going to have, a pop-up to grab emails and SMSs. The other thing is we want to make sure you have a good remarketing strategy, and also even direct mail follow-up, which is really good for converting. And then also just nailing your value proposition, all the following emails. And then, of course, beyond this, you have to have a great ad hoc marketing calendar where you're talking to them, about July 4th or, just recently Father's Day. And so you want to have those, situations where you can talk to your audience again with relevant messaging. All right, I'm going to shortly send this over to Susan, but you may be asking, why TV? Why CTV? All right, connected TV. So when I was at the Real, we were plugging around, around 2016, 2017, we were doing about 200 million a year, and that's not, nothing to be shy about. But when we did our brand awareness, we were about 1.5% to 2% awareness. And so nobody knew about us. And so with a brand, you need to have trust so people know you. It's not just from a Google search, right? And TV, the old adage, as seen on TV, really works, because when people see you on TV, they tend to convert more because they're like, oh, I know that brand, right? And so we see this positive halo effect on Google shopping, search, paid social, because they get that first introduction through a TV spot, and it just helps all boats, right? So all your channels go up in terms of, conversion and lower CAC. The other thing that I think people get scared of, and why we're here with Rockerbox, is how to measure it. And so if you're just doing everything in isolation on a platform attribution, you don't see it, right? And so this is something where you need to have a multi-attribution tool and we'll get into how Rockerbox handles this for TV, but it's very important. And what you'll see, and I've seen this every time, and of course, you have to do it right, but TV has lower CAC and higher LTV than those other sources. And for the reasons why I stated earlier in terms of bringing in enthusiasts. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Susan because I've talked a lot, and she's going to go over how to drive the biz with TV.
So first of all, you really want to choose a strategic partner that's not just trying to sell you media. When we work with a client, we'll even rest them for a month or two, especially if their funnel is not completely operating in the correct manner as we start to bring in new leads. So it's important to us that your business works. It's not really critical to us that we just keep getting money from you every single month. So we're more like a strategic partner versus just a kind of just a run-of-the-mill ad agency. The other thing is that we look at, especially when it comes to the creative product, direct response, meaning that it's going to drive to your website, it's going to create an action or get somebody to do something. Plus, we want to make sure that the creative is talking about your brand. We want to make sure that you're starting to fill both of those funnels. And I know it's very complicated to look at the immediacy of direct response, but then also the longer term halo effect of awareness. But you really need both. And as you grow your awareness over time, you really see that helping all of your other channels. And the direct response is a way to be able to start yourself off in a less expensive approach. We test creative prior to buying media. It's really important. Creative is expensive to produce. It's expensive to test it in market. You can do that, but let's at least go through. And we have a really great partner that gets your target audience to review your creative, gets a really good sense of whether or not it's performing against that particular audience and whether or not they want to buy after they've watched it. So that, and it also gives us opportunities to be able to tweak because it looks at it second by second. And if people don't like certain things, those can be adjusted. It's really important as you're going through this process to make sure that your reviews are strong across and beyond Google. So looking at Yelp, SiteJabber, Trustpilot, because you're bringing in a different kind of person. This isn't somebody who's already ready to buy and just looking in Google to find out where they go get something. These are people that might want to check you out and might want to look different places to see who you are in order to get a confidence level that this is the right company for them to purchase from. There's also the site experience review to see if the site is ready for top of funnel efforts, because people are not the same when they come in through top of funnel. Some of them want more information about you versus just going right to purchase. Then we do a full-on planning process. We dragged this years ago. I dragged this from more branding into direct response marketing and then eventually into digital to make sure that we were starting off in the right spot. So one is a very comprehensive competitive analysis using Nielsen. It gives us a lot of really great hints. So we're not starting from scratch. It may tell us what networks are working really well for a particular competitor. It may tell us what times of year work better. It may give us some hints about some things that we can use so that we're not starting from scratch. The second thing we do is we do a target audience identification through MRI Simmons. We want to reach your target for two reasons. One, they're more likely to respond, but also these are the people we want to establish the brand with. And so we really are agnostic about that target audience. We want to reach them. We do not want to reach anybody else. It's basically a waste of money if you're just throwing everything out there and seeing what sticks. It's better to be very selective. And we let the research drive our efforts in that process. We also are really cognizant that we are using your money to actually create this test. And we only want to put enough frequency out there in order to be able to read a day part's performance before we start increasing spend. So we're really careful with your dollars from the get-go. I think it's really important. We also apply, which in my in my head, I think it's like we could pull a rating away from the buyers who know in their heads sort of what works and what doesn't work for particular products or particular categories. And we apply a DR rating to cable networks. A really good example of that is the Golf Channel. Works great if you're selling a golf bag, if you're selling golf clubs. It's a horrible performer. Even though your audience might be there, it's a horrible performance because people are willing to pay anything to sell a golf club on that channel. And so it doesn't work for a lot of other products. CTV, we structure that to maintain healthy frequency, but we're really cognizant we do not want to over frequency, especially to our key population. That, again, is also a waste of money. In addition, we do a whole bunch of math projects with CTV to make sure that is it actually better for us to be able to, is it better for us to be able to buy at a household level versus buying a particular target, because the math just works out better. And it's the CPM is way too expensive when you start to try to codify your audience. And linear's not dead, far from it. And it plays with CTV. For our latest client, one of the things that we've been using is news. So people are watching live news on Hulu, and they get our commercials when we place them with CNN and MSNBC. So we're not just buying linear, we're getting linear and CTV. In addition to that, we're always buying a combination. And then we line it up based on performance, and whoever's working better, that's the line. So it may be 2 linear channels and then CTV, or it may be 1 linear channel and then CTV. But we look at it that way, and then that way they all have to get to the best bottom line possible. I'm turning it back over to Marc.
All right, thank you, Susan. So some more guidelines here. When we do a test with a client, we always recommend a 3-month test. And that's really just based on our experience. We'll see, over and over, 1, we don't get enough frequency in a day part. 2, the conversion cycle's not covered in month 1, right? And so we'll see over and over where a lot of clients they'll put their toe in the water of TV and run it for a month and they don't see anything, right? Or maybe they see something, but not enough to stick with it. Month 2, we start to see, some convincing signs. I'm starting to feel it. I'm hearing anecdotally that people saw our spot. Your vendors start coming in. Oh, I heard about you. It gets exciting. And partners as well. And then the 3rd month, and I've seen this over and over, they become, TV will start to, and CTV will be in your top 3 sources of customers. And you'll start seeing CAC go down across the board. You'll start seeing some, maybe if you're capturing, nice thing about Rockerbox is they attribute, to these, TV, and then you can take that into your data warehouse through some of their connectors, and you can track those attributed those customers over time. And so after 3 months, you can see how that month 1 customer is doing on LTV versus your Google shoppers, right? And so really important to do this 3-month test. Another thing, a lot of clients will talk about the problem a lot on TV. But, if you have a good product and, everybody knows there's a problem, with that you're solving, you don't need to spend a lot of time there. So you spend a lot of time on your solution that you're offering. And, make sure you have your crystal clear, your value prop, a 1, 2, 3 of what you're trying to say. And of course you want this in all your, do you have any? So, on the spend, do you want to answer that one real quick?
Yes. So we try, it depends on whether you're national or local in terms of how much you're going to spend, but we look to spend enough to make it work. So that runs, and usually on the linear side, at least 3 or 4 stations deep. And on the CTV side, you've got to have enough activity out there in order to get a good frequency against your target. So that's sort of how we build to how much spend you should put behind a test. So I would say that depends on the client and the role and the size of the target. There's a lot of activity, but just for kind of, 70, 80,000 a week, maybe, is a great way to kind of get started if you're straddling both sides of the fence, CTV and linear.
So one other thing, on top of making sure you have your 1, 2, 3 value prop crystallized is, when you run your 30-second spot, people are maybe doing something else. They may be watching their kids, they may be on their phone. So you want to make sure you do a voice overlay, just reiterate these value props, and also text overlays. Those are important to sort of get their attention. And then another thing, I'll watch a lot of commercials and I'll be like, what was that? What company was that? And, we like to make sure there's clear branding throughout the commercial. And then the offer panel at the end is so important for direct response. And we like to leave like 5 seconds there for just to set in with the watchers. And hopefully that will make them activate on your website or download your app or whatever. As Susan was talking about, your user experience, you want to make sure that funnel's so easy. We live in a Shopify and Amazon world, right? Everything's one click. If you're not there, it's going to be really challenging. And then you must, this is a battle that I go over and over. Email and SMS capture. This is something that I've tested thousands of times. People don't like doing this, but if you have this, you'll see in the test after 30, 60 days, those email captures convert. And so they actually make it worth it. And of course, the remarketing and your nurturing funnels. One proxy that we see a lot, and actually I should say, in addition to organic search and direct, we see social go up. But one thing is your direct goes way up, right? And so you get like 40% of your traffic's coming in direct, and it's like, where's it from? And luckily, our friends at Rockerbox have some solutions there to help there. But your organic brand search will go way up because they're going from the TV, from watching the TV set, they go to their laptop or their phone, and they're putting in the brand, right? And so you see that. With an MTA, and a lot of clients don't start out with an MTA, to tell you the truth. And, but we definitely, there's a time where we're like, okay, we need MTA because we can't get a clear picture on CAC without it. And so, the cool thing about Rockerbox is it handles linear and CTV really well. So what we call, for linear TV, traditional TV, we use Spike. Okay, and so spike attribution will take an 11-minute window when the spot runs, and it will attribute, all the leads that come in and during that 11 minutes, but just take the incremental and say that's TV. So you have an industry benchmark. Not an industry benchmark. You have your company benchmark, and anything that goes over that will attribute to TV, and that's what Rockerbox will do. They'll consume the spot times, and then they'll make sure that we're getting that, we're looking for that incremental. The other thing that we'll do with like a company like a Hulu is it will match the IPs that watch the TV spot, and then when they come to the site, they'll be like, gotcha, okay, and so they'll attribute that to CTV. Another I'll do a shout out, which I think this company's really great, is Faring does a really good job on the post conversion survey, which is amazing because you really need these 3 legs to the stool, right? And so you have this big direct traffic, and maybe they didn't come through your 11-minute window, or maybe the IPs it broke, right? And so at the end of their ordering process, they'll, a company like Faring will have a built-in survey at your checkout, which will say, how did you hear about us, right? And they're really good about dynamically populating the answers, so it just doesn't, so people just don't, click the first button. And also they really do a good job of suggestive sources while you're typing. So really good solution there, and pretty inexpensive too. And then if everything's done right, like I said, you're going to see all boats rise, right? So your Google Shopping gets better, your paid social gets better. And then when you do have a full funnel, you're going to see something interesting in the journeys within Rockerbox. They have a marketing path, and people that are stuck on the bottom of the funnel, they basically have one touch point order. And that's a really hard way to go. You need this multiple touch points to really get your customer at the right time. And so you'll see TV leading to paid social. You'll see TV leading to organic social. And then that will be the path to conversion. And so that's one way, like when I'm looking at a client and I look at their Rockerbox and I see their paths and they only have one path, a couple paths where there's not multiple touch points, I know there's probably a full funnel issue. Let's see what else we have. Okay, here's a great example. I'm sorry, we're going a little bit over, of a spot we recently did. Rinse.com is a app that you can download. Nobody likes to do laundry, so we don't have to talk about how hard laundry is. We just talk about the solution here, and you'll see how it's time saving, it's convenient, and there we talk about trust. And there's a nice little offer panel, and you'll see the branding throughout. And so here's a great example of a direct response piece. Let me see if I can play this video.
Okay, ready to watch this? 1 second, I gotta finish my laundry.
Jess, it's girls' night.
1 second, I use Rinse.
What's Rinse?
The company that will pick up, wash, fold, and deliver your laundry and dry cleaning at the touch of a button.
I do not trust other people with my laundry.
Rinse guarantees your satisfaction. I've been using it for months now with no issues. Okay, let's watch this.
Wait, I'm gonna do my laundry.
Better hurry.
Done. All schedules.
Sign up for Rinse at rinse.com to get $20 off your first order.
So great example there. Let me go back to the slide presentation of a direct response ad, but also there's lots of branding moments there, what Susan was alluding to earlier. But you definitely want, that offer panel, because you need this to pay off for your CEO. The board's going to be like, okay, you spent all this money on TV, on the creative, and then you spent, $250K a month. How did this work? And so you definitely want to get leads and conversions here. And so that's why this video is really good. And you got the 1, 2, 3. You have, saves time. It's convenient. It's on an app. 3, we talk about, one thing I would have put in here is maybe reviews. Reviews are really good to build trust. And then, of course, the offer panel at the end. So really good example there for a direct response spot. Okay, so I think that's the end. We did it in 28 minutes. I was thinking 20 minutes, but I think we're good. So I want to open it up for questions. If anybody has one, put it in chat. Okay. One thing, let me just put a question out there, and I'll ask Susan, who's the expert here. A lot of people are like, isn't TV dead? Shouldn't I be going and, why would I be doing that at this point? And like, isn't linear on its way out? Who watches cable? And shouldn't I be, we'll hear this board members will be like, oh, just do CTV. Just do CTV. So love to open this up to Susan just to respond to that.
Thanks, Mark. So the reality is that linear is losing audience over time. Radio is losing audience over time. There's a lot of activity that is happening, or a lot of change that is happening in the industry. But if you want reach, linear is still the play. It still has higher ratings. There are a lot of individuals, especially people who have income, who will straddle, who will stick with their cable, or like in the example I gave earlier about news, you can sort of get both. You can get Hulu streaming, and you can also get linear at the same time. So that TV's not quote unquote dead, or linear side of the fence is not dead, but you have to combine it with CTV. It needs to be a combination now. It can't just live on its own like it used to. So I think that's really where we are right now, is we're in a straddle situation. I have this crazy prediction. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I think that there may be some really nice, clear space for us on the direct response side in linear for a while, once there's enough video on the CTV side of the fence to take on most of the brand advertisers. The problem has been, though, there's a lack of video, and there's a lack of video on CTV side with commercials in it. So I think that's the other kind of, we're all trying to move over into that side of the fence, but we're finding a disappointment because the CPMs are so high.
Yeah, and one other thing that, the writer's strike is really interesting right now, that's going on right now, because a lot of people would have done late night, TV advertising on the talk shows, but now they're moving into, daytime to sort of capture the audience. But, one other thing is with streaming, Netflix is starting to open it up. I think Max is opening it up a little bit. Hulu's been there, but like Disney Plus, they're like having a hard time making money, with the streaming. So the subscription thing is not doing it all. You sort of need that ad dollars to make it work. And so I think we're going to see, you can't just build all this content and, and make it work for $9 a subscriber, right? And so I think there's going to be some change eventually. And again, like the NFL, they dish out, they get so much money from ads, and so, you basically don't need to go to a football game for them to make money, because they get share, they get ad share. Same with the college, hoops and football. And so it's going to be interesting without this advertising, over time, what happens. And I think they'll make, we were talking about newspapers, newspapers were doing this crazy thing with the beginning of the internet, where they would just let you come in and consume content without paying. And now they've all switched, right? So I think there will be I don't think the streaming with no commercials is going to last, because I think people need to make more money for this expensive content. And also, guess what? The writers want to share. And so we'll see what happens. I got a question here. Upper funnel KPIs like brand awareness could be sticky, particularly for established brands. Does a 3-month test coming work? You mentioned a spike of 11-minute windows. Is that a service provider for audience measurement? You want to take that, Susan?
You got a couple of things in here, which is great. It's a really good question. Chris, thank you for the 11-minute window. Airing feels too long. Let me go through the upper funnel part, and then I'll answer the 11-minute window question. So the first part on upper funnel KPIs like brand awareness, they grow slowly over time. 3 months, by the 3rd month, you'll start to see it heading in the right direction. If you're looking at awareness and tracking it, you'll start to see it heading in the right direction. So within 3 months, you'll start to see that thing heading in the correct way, but it's not going to tell you where you're going to ultimately end up by any stretch of the imagination. So that's just giving you a sense that, oh yeah, awareness is working, and it's helping other things. As far as the spike, and Chris, you're right, 11-minute may feel too long. We do it, we customize it, and this is just for us to be able to see what works and what doesn't work on one spot versus another. This is not a Rockerbox solution, which the Rockerbox solution is what you ultimately want to have. But this gives us the ability to be able to adjust quickly to TV. We look at a client's individual spike. So it could be 3 or 4 minutes. It's often 3 or 4 minutes. It could be 2 minutes. It could be 5 minutes. Some of it also is kind of on the back end and not everything is perfect when you're looking at the timestamp that you get from the spot. It may be a couple of seconds off. You've got maybe a couple of seconds on when that person first entered the website. So those are things that we look at. So you're right. An 11-minute window might feel too long, but we look at the spike and use the client spike to be able to make that determination.
Yeah, and I would say on the brand awareness KPI, we're performance focused, right? And so, and when I was the CMO at the Real, like brand awareness is not something I would that's a tricky metric. If you start publishing that every 3 months, guess what? The board's going to be hawking that metric. So you got to be careful there. And you really want to focus this on the payback. Am I getting ROI? Is the LTV looking good? Is the CAC looking good? And that's where Rockerbox comes into play. I would say the brand awareness, do that once a year. If you start getting into that, how's that doing? Every 3 months when you check in with the board and it goes down and it's just this like crazy metric that you're just doing a survey to the audience, watch out, because it's not a real, it's a nice metric that you use to get, to see where you are. But I would do it we would do it every year.
I can give you a really good example of that. When we were working on orbits and we were tracking awareness and we're looking at Travelocity, and Travelocity's awareness was really erratic. And we realized it was because they were changing their campaigns way more often than anybody else in the category. So because they were putting new creative out there, they were having to kind of start over to a certain degree with their awareness building over time. So there are other things that can influence your awareness that aren't just based on media.
Okay. But yeah, so just the last, we got one more. Yeah, it's a really tricky metric, and be careful about showing that to the board. It's really a good internal metric. And because at the Real we were at 1.5%, and you start sharing that widely, people are like, oh my God, you guys aren't doing your job correctly, even though we're doing 200 million a year. And then, I got to say the trick is, you look at the Wayfairs, the Reels, you start to get into that area where you're spending, 10 million a year on TV, and you get about 10 points the next year, 10 points. So by the time, 2017 was when we launched TV, we were at 1.5% awareness. By the time we went IPO in 2019, we were at like 30 plus, 35%, and it's grown since there with the awareness of the IPO. But yeah, it's a tricky metric for sure. Okay. So if you guys want to reach out for some help on, really just to talk about your growth challenges, we've been there. And they're very fixable. Reach out to us at lab415.com and we'll be more than happy to help you. And also, if you have any questions about attribution, Susan's been doing TV attribution forever, and so she can help out quite a bit. And I think that's it. So thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Susan. That was a great presentation. We have just a little bit of a break before our next one at 3. It's hard to believe, but we are nearly at the end of summer camp. We just have 2 more sessions until it wraps up for this year, and 2 great sessions. We have a data warehousing panel next with 4 of our customers, and that's going to be fantastic. We blocked off extra time for that because we knew there was going to be discussion. So that's a great one. And there's still time if you have a colleague that would benefit this and hasn't registered yet. There is still time to register for this session and also our final session, which is a word from Ron, our CEO, about the future of Rockerbox. And also we have an exciting surprise at the end of the day. Ashley, if you want to tell us about that.
We do. We have a very exciting surprise. So actually we have two surprises. The first is that we are so thankful to our gift sponsor, Rad Power Bikes. They are an amazing customer of ours, and they have generously given us 2 Rad Power Bikes to give away to lucky registrants of summer camp. So if there was no other reason, which there have been hundreds of reasons to register for summer camp, if there was no other reason, getting a Rad Power Bike should be on your list. So make sure to share that with your colleagues. And like Maggie said, there are some really great sessions coming up. And then we also have something really great planned coming down the line in September. I know a lot of brands are starting to already think about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and your holiday strategy. A lot of the time, brands like Rockerbox aren't talking about that quite soon enough, right? We start talking about it in October, and that is way too late for the brands. And so we are going to be doing a couple of things in September around that, and I'm going to talk more about that after our last session. But maybe you'll see some of these speakers again in that event, so stay tuned.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you over at the next session.